From the dawn of time, great empires have risen and fallen, their stories written in the blood of soldiers and the tears of the bereaved. Our tale begins in an age of bitter rivalry, a time when two mighty empires, the Valerians and the Ashgar, stood on the brink of a war that would scar the world for generations. For centuries, their animosity had simmered, fueled by ancient grievances, border disputes, and the insatiable ambition of their rulers. Now, the time for diplomacy was over. The drums of war were beating, a thunderous rhythm that echoed across the continent, calling forth legions of men to a conflict that promised only destruction. Across the desolate, mist-shrouded plains of Cathar, a land that had known no king and offered no comfort, the two greatest armies the world had ever seen began to gather. The Valerian Empire, known for its disciplined legions and gleaming silver armor, marched under the banner of the Golden Lion. Their emperor, Kalan, was a man forged in the fires of duty, believed to be the chosen son of the sun god. He was a brilliant strategist, but his heart was heavy with the burden of sending thousands to their potential deaths. He stood on a rocky outcrop, his crimson cape billowing in the wind, and watched his endless columns of soldiers pour into the valley. Each man was a testament to Valerian strength, their spears a forest of sharpened steel, their shields a wall of polished resolve. They were confident, yes, but even the bravest heart felt a tremor of fear as the chilling mists of Cathar swirled around them. Opposite them, emerging from the eastern shadows, were the hordes of the Ashgar. They were a people of resilience and fire, their armor forged from dark, volcanic rock etched with runes of power. They followed the warlord Malika, a figure of immense strength and charisma who had united the scattered clans under a single banner, the Black Dragon. Malika was not a king by birth, but a leader chosen by the people for his unmatched prowess in battle and his unwavering dedication to their survival. He rode a massive, dark stallion, his gaze fixed on the shimmering lines of the Valerian army. His warriors were fierce, their faces painted with symbols of their ancestors, their voices a low, guttural chant that seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet. They were fighting not just for glory, but for their very existence, for the right to call the harsh eastern lands their own. The air grew thick with tension, so palpable it was almost a physical force. The mist clung to the ground, muffling sound and creating a ghostly silence that was more terrifying than any war cry. For 3 days, the armies faced each other, a silent, menacing standoff. Scouts skirmished in the grey twilight, their brief, brutal clashes serving as a grim prelude to the main event. In the camps, soldiers sharpened their blades, wrote last letters to loved ones, and shared stories around flickering fires, their laughter a fragile defense against the encroaching darkness. They were sons, fathers, and brothers, each with a life left behind, now reduced to a single purpose: to kill or be killed. The gathering storm was about to break, and the world held its breath, waiting for the first drop of rain, the first clang of steel. On the fourth morning, the mist began to retreat, as if fleeing from the violence to come. A single, mournful horn blast from the Valerian lines split the dawn air. It was the signal. An answering roar erupted from the Ashgar ranks, a wave of pure, primal fury, and then the charge. 100,000 men on each side surged forward, a living tsunami of flesh and steel. The ground trembled as they met in the center of the plain, and the world exploded into a cacophony of chaos. The clash of steel was deafening, swords on shields, axes on helmets, spears on armor. It was a maelstrom of violence, a horrifying ballet of death. The battle was not a neat formation of lines and strategies. It was a visceral, chaotic struggle for survival. We see a young Valerian soldier, barely a man, parrying a wild swing from a hulking Ashgar warrior, his face a mask of terror and determination. He stumbles, recovers, and thrusts his spear, his eyes shut tight. Nearby, an Ashgar archer, a woman with braided hair and fierce eyes, looses arrow after arrow into the fray, each one finding its mark with deadly precision. She moves with a dancer's grace, a whirlwind of lethal efficiency amidst the carnage. Men fought with desperation, their training giving way to instinct. The polished silver armor of the Valyrians was soon dented, scratched, and stained crimson. The dark, volcanic armor of the Ashgar was chipped and broken. The ground became a treacherous mire of mud and blood. The screams of the wounded and dying were a constant, harrowing chorus that rose above the clang of weapons. Bravery was everywhere, in countless forms. A Valyrian standard-bearer, his flag torn and tattered, refuses to retreat, becoming a rallying point for his wavering comrades until he is finally overwhelmed. An Ashgar berserker, wounded multiple times, continues to fight with two axes, a roaring embodiment of his people's indomitable spirit. For hours, the battle raged, a relentless tide of attack and counterattack. Neither side could gain a decisive advantage. It was a meat grinder, chewing up lives with horrifying impartiality. The sun climbed high into the sky, its light illuminating a scene of pure hell, a testament to the terrible cost of hatred and ambition. The grand strategies of emperors and warlords had dissolved into 1,000 individual life-or-death struggles on a blood-soaked field. As the day wore on and the sun began its descent, casting long, bloody shadows across the field, a strange lull fell over a section of the battlefield. The sheer exhaustion of the fighters and the monumental number of casualties had created a pocket of eerie silence amidst the ongoing slaughter. It was here, in the heart of the carnage, that the two leaders, Emperor Kaelan and Warlord Malika, found themselves. Both had been fighting at the forefront, leading their personal guards into the thickest parts of the battle. Now, separated from their men, they stood alone, surrounded by the dead and dying from both their armies. Their fine armor was battered, their faces smeared with grime and blood. They were no longer icons on a banner. They were just two men, breathing heavily, their bodies aching, their souls weary. They locked eyes across the 20 paces that separated them. In that moment, the titles of Emperor and Warlord fell away. Kaelan saw not the barbarian destroyer of his history books, but a man with weariness in his eyes that mirrored his own. He saw the grief for the fallen warriors that lay at his feet, men who had followed him with unwavering loyalty. Malika, in turn, did not see the arrogant, gilded tyrant he had imagined. He saw a leader burdened by immense responsibility, a man whose shoulders sagged under the weight of the lives he had spent. In the shared space between them, filled with the ghosts of their soldiers, they saw their own reflection. They saw the same pain, the same loss, the same terrible, terrible waste. A fallen Valyrian soldier lay near Kaelan, his hand outstretched, clutching a small wooden bird toy. Perhaps, for a child he would never see again. Near Malika, a young Ashgar warrior lay with his eyes open to the sky, a simple, woven bracelet on his wrist, a token from a mother or a lover. The humanity of it all crashed down upon them. These were not just numbers in a battle plan. They were lives, hopes, and dreams, extinguished for the sake of old grudges and contested lands. What had they gained? This field of death, this mountain of corpses. A profound, gut-wrenching realization dawned on both leaders simultaneously. They were two sides of the same coin, locked in a cycle of destruction that would consume them both. Malika slowly lowered his massive axe, its head thudding into the soft, blood-soaked earth. Kaelan, seeing the gesture, let his own sword drop from his weary hand. They took a hesitant step toward each other, their guards watching from a distance, confused and uncertain. In the middle of the carnage, a fragile, unspoken truce was born. The turning point had arrived, not with a heroic charge, but with a quiet, shared moment of profound and devastating clarity. The war horns sounded again, but this time they carried a different tune. It was a call to cease, to lay down arms. Confused at first, the soldiers from both sides slowly, hesitantly, stopped fighting. They looked to their leaders, who now stood together, not as enemies, but as two men united by a shared horror. The war was over. In the days that followed, an unprecedented event occurred. The Valerian and Ashgar empires, mortal enemies for centuries, began to work together. The first task was the grim one of honoring the fallen. Soldiers who had been trying to kill each other just days before now worked side by side, digging graves, identifying the dead, and performing last rites according to their different customs. Valerians helped bury the Ashgar, and the Ashgar helped carry the Valerian dead. In this shared act of mourning, a new foundation of respect and understanding was laid. Emperor Kalon and warlord Malaka decreed that the plains of Caithar would be transformed. No longer a battlefield, it would become a memorial, a vast garden of remembrance where white and black stones marked the graves of the thousands who had fallen. In the center, they commissioned a grand monument of a triumphant warrior, but of two soldiers, one Valerian and one Ashgar, helping each other to stand. The empires united their resources, not for war, but for reconstruction. They rebuilt the border towns that had been destroyed, creating new communities where Valerians and Ashgar lived as neighbors. Trade routes were opened, cultural exchanges were encouraged, and the stories of the Great War were told not to glorify battle, but to warn of its costs. A new dawn had broken. It was not a dawn of victory for one empire over another, but a dawn of peace for all. The cycle of hatred had been broken, replaced by a commitment to a shared future. The sacrifices of the fallen were not in vain, for their loss had purchased a wisdom that generations of conflict could not teach. The world was healing, and the story of the Valerians and the Ashgar became a legend, a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, humanity has the capacity to find the light, to choose unity over division, and to build a new world from the ashes of the old. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more tales of history, humanity, and hope. We'll see you next time.